And welcome back to the Community Gameplan. I'm your host, Eric Holman, and this is my co-host,
Jim Smartin.
Jim
Here we have
Smartin.
it. Welcome to the Community Gameplan.
We have a little more shenanigans today, that's for sure, because I'm a little tongue-tied today.
Great go. So Community Gameplan, as you know, we like to focus on community, and our mini-sodes that we are now putting out, the little change up, is focusing on the real estate aspect of our lives. Isn't that right, Eric?
That's right. So today, episode 15, we're going to dive into lawyer review. So agreement of purchase and sales always have their buyer's conditions, but also attached to that is the lawyer review. So we have our guest today is going to be Mark Comeau of TMC Law. Mark is based out of a Windsor office, but they also have an office in Kentville. So we had a pretty good interview with Mark, and we didn't go too deep because, lawyer review, as we learn, and you will learn by listening to the next part.
The deep laws.
Yeah, it's very deep, and it depends on what type of property purchase you're doing. If it's single family, whether it's condo, whether it's mini homes or vacant land. So we hope you enjoy this little interview, and we cover a lot, but we didn't go too deep, we hope. When you do have more questions, you definitely need to reach out to us, and we'll get you in touch with the right people if we don't have the answers. So we hope you enjoy our interview with Mark Comeau, and we'll see you on the other side.
Take her easy. Hit the little bell. Like, follow, subscribe. Bye.
All right, and welcome back. And we're going to be speaking with Mark Comeau. And first off, Mark, welcome to the Community Gameplan. And how about you give us a little introduction, a little background on yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Eric. So my name is Mark Comeau. I'm a real estate lawyer with the firm Taylor MacLellan Cochrane. Practice out of Windsor. Our main office is in Kentville, but I lay my shingle, if you will, so to speak, in Windsor. So I'm a real nice, excellent halfway between the city and the valley, which I always like to tell people who are city way that, if you're thinking about looking for a property, West Hants has a whole lot to offer. It's a real nice in between.
Definitely
So
does.
that's who I am. That's who I'm with, and that's what I do. I do other areas of law as well, wills and estates and corporate commercial type law. But about half my practice is real estate. So that's what I find myself doing the most, and that's, I'm going to assume, why Jim reached out to me. No, I know.
That is it. That is
Yeah,
it.
Trying to be self-deprecating at the same time, but I'm
100%.
you know
100%.
the
yeah.
humor's too dry. It's
Well, as you know, you have partaken on our growth from starting with over a pint, and you have spoken for us before at our brokerages, doing chats for agents, lunch and learns, and so on and so forth. I do find usually I come at you with the same thing, like, what's the biggest question? What's the worst you see? Like, what do you see people tripping over? But what I don't seem to ever bring up is the very plain and simple, the lawyer condition clause. And I find so many people actually think it's just a sign and walk away. And it's like, well, usually there's nothing wrong, or usually there's nothing wrong, but that's where the conversation between the realtor and the lawyer come in. Is it's their job to try to make things go smoothly. But I still find, because of, I guess, the kid gloves, so to say, that we make sure to try to keep with our clients to keep their stress levels down. They don't actually know what happens behind the scenes when it comes to the lawyer review.
absolutely. And one thing I will say, kind of as just a starting point, is that it's always appreciated from our standpoint when we get that agreement in as early as possible so that we have as much lead time to do the review we need to do. Because, kind of to Jim's point, there are a lot of times when everything's fine. It's not a lengthy review. Everything lines up the way we want to see it. No concerns. And then let you know that, of course. But there are times when that doesn't happen. And sometimes we do need more time to flesh out some things. We may need to have a conversation about some things to clarify, whatever it may be. So we always appreciate getting that as soon as possible. And sometimes I have realtors reach out to me and say, Mark, listen, like, we're kind of running on a tight timeline. Can you hit it? And I appreciate that too, because I'd rather have that conversation up front to say, yes, I can, or no, I can't, as the case may be, depending on what that timeline is. But the more time, the better. But the other thing I tell realtors all the time, because sometimes I'll have realtors say, well, I'm not going to send it to you if it's SOBP, if it's sale of buyer's property, like, that might never happen. So I'm not going to send that to you and waste your time. And some lawyers may tell you that's fine. Not me. I want it. Even if it's SOBP, I want it, because then we're not running out of time And if things come together the way we'd like them to come together, we're ready. And
That's
then
right.
it's not last minute. We're not worried about any of that. So I get that sometimes, but that's not how I look at it. I want it,
Yeah, because
whether it's
typically
SOP.
most of our real estate deals, like our buyer's condition dates, are about 7 to 10 days at most. Sometimes a little bit longer, but if we don't get that to you, if we get that to you on day 6 and we only have 10 days of conditions to meet, that doesn't really give you much time, especially if you find any hiccups.
And if you send it to me after the date and there's no issue, that's fine. You send it to me after the date and there is an issue, we got a problem.
That's right.
And that's one of the deep dive things I'll chat about. But that's kind of the starting point is do get it to us, because then it gives us the time we need to review it in case there is something to discuss. So, and I guess just from my standpoint right now, I'm happy to, as Jim knows, I'm happy to run my mouth, because I'm pretty good at that, and I sometimes don't stop and don't come up for air, and you got to stop me. But and I can certainly kind of run you through what I look at, my process is, and things I look out for. But before I get into that song and dance, if you will, is there anything that you guys see on your end that you have a question or a concern about that you would like me to address from a lawyer review standpoint out of the gate?
For me, I
No.
mean, the one of the big questions for me is the land titles aspect, because I know that's something that you guys dive into deep. Maybe that's something that you could help explain what you guys do, and the process maybe, and maybe give us a horror story or something that because I know like we as agents,
Well, I can.
we have to say we have to do our own research when we have a client looking to sell, to make sure that they're actually selling, their name is on the deed, basically, right? So I'm assuming you guys are doing extra steps beyond that, what we do.
Yes, yes, and we do that too, because that is important, no question. But yeah, that's not where I stop. So, and that's actually a good segue, because when I get that agreement and I'm doing my lawyer review, I tend to start with the title as opposed to the agreement. Not all the time, but for the most part, I start with the title, because I want to see what's there. I want to see if there's anything in there that's, causing me any kind of concern. Because then once I've analyzed that and I know what I'm looking at from that standpoint, when I go over to the agreement, if something's not matching up or something's not addressed the way I think it should be addressed, then we can deal with that. For example, one of the things that we're looking at in that title, and it may not be as much of an issue for you in the city on public streets. Sometimes it certainly can be, but in more rural parts of the province where I'm dealing with a lot, rights of way and access to your property can be huge issue.
Hmm.
So that's one of the things that I'm verifying in that review. Okay. Yeah. The person owns it. Great. That's important. Also, I'm looking for any clues as to whether or not they're married, especially on the sales side, because sometimes you'll see one spouse on title, but because it's a matrimonial home, they can't sell it without their spouse's consent. So that's often where I'd be coming back to you to say, hey, we need to add the spouse to the agreement of person's sale so that they're bound by that contract, because otherwise you could be in a situation, and I have seen it, where you get close to closing and all of a sudden someone says, well, I'm not signing, I'm not consenting to this sale. And then you get deep sixed and everything is terrible. So that's one of the things I'm looking for. If I find the clues and it tells me, I know. If it's not, I'm asking the client the question, the realtor the question. But so that's one thing. Ownership is important. Spousal rights are important. But yeah, rights of way and access is a big one. And I've seen that over and over again, where someone has a property which is not on a public highway, or it may be on a public highway, but that's not where the driveway is. I see this a lot too. Yeah, it's on Highway 14. How do you actually get to the property? Is it off Highway 14, or is it over your neighbor's property where the driveway is? And that's something we're looking at. And then if that right of way is established, great. That's what we want to see. If it's not, that's something I'm bringing to the realtor and or the client's attention to say, hey, listen, we've got this thing that we've got to address. But that's also why I say I like to look at the title first before the agreement, because if I look at title and I see that, hey, we've got no right of way. This is, okay, I've got a concern. And then I look at the agreement and it's in the agreement, because maybe they own the lot next door, the driveway's over, and it's in the agreement as, under Article 7 or whatever, right away is going to be granted on closing or before closing or whatever. Okay. This has been addressed. I'm happy with it, as long as the language is fine, but you get the idea.
Right.
I've seen an issue, it's been addressed. Okay, now we're moving in the right direction. But if I see an issue and it's not addressed, then of course it's a conversation we have to have.
So does the encroachment and stuff fall under that as well? Like, say somebody's got a shed and it's clearly
Mm.
over that
Well,
line.
so that's a good point, Jim, because is it clearly over the line? Is it over the line because property online shows it over the line?
Yeah.
Because the mapping on property online is notoriously wrong. You can't rely on it. It can't be relied upon. Same with viewpoint, same with all this stuff. It's an approximation. It's tattooed on that program. Do not rely on this. Can't rely on this. So if you're only looking at the mapping showing an encroachment, that may or may not be the case. If there's a survey or location certificate that shows an encroachment, that's an issue you got to deal with. But if all it is property online mapping, that's not something that you can go on, because it may or may not be correct. It just may not be. Uh, So not to jump around too much, but this is also why whenever I'm representing on a purchase transaction, I'm highly recommending title insurance. If you're borrowing money from a bank, the bank's going to make you get it anyway. So to add your own policy is peanuts in comparison, but it's really important, because there may or may not be an encroachment. We don't know. We can't verify without a survey. Surveys cost a lot of money. They take a lot of time. We've got a tight timeline. Like, I tell this to clients, like, you want a survey? Is your closing date 5 months down the road? No? Good luck. Not saying it's impossible, but it takes a lot more time. So, we're doing title insurance on a lot of these transactions to cover off an encroachment that may or may not be there. And hopefully it's not there at all, of course. But if it is,
Yeah.
then that's protection. And that's not necessarily part of lawyer review on the title insurance side. If there's something like, if I'm going on and I'm looking at title and there is a survey plan, I'm looking at it. And if it shows that encroachment, I'm bringing it up, because now we know about it. And more importantly, well, not more importantly, but also importantly, if that's there, title insurance won't cover it. So if you see the issue and you know the issue, you can't get insurance for it, because they're not going to cover it. And say, well, why are you coming to me asking me to insure you over an issue that I know already exists and I have to pay money for it? No, I'll insure everything else,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not insuring that. So then you're dealing with the other side about, or the neighbors, the case may be, with trying to address that. So encroachments are a funny one, because they're not always apparent. But when they are, sometimes, and this is the thing, is sometimes in the city, I see a little bit more survey fabric than I do in rural, right?
Right.
And but also in rural, you got more room.
There's a little more wiggle room for
You're
sure.
not, you may not be as worried, but no, it could also be a driveway could be encroaching. You could have a shared driveway and someone thinks the driveway's on their property and it's not. That does happen too.
I've heard
So
stories like
any
that.
of those clues I can find, I'm looking for. Any of these things I'm looking for. Restrictive covenants, right? Those are an issue that I'm going to raise too. I mean, there's a lot of times when you see restrictive covenants that are your normal run of the mill. You see them in every single subdivision. Every bloody developer does it. Same old, same old. No derelict vehicles, no businesses.
No billboards, things like that.
No farm animals. No
Yeah.
hobby. It's like all these things, and that's not something I'm really. Oh, hey, you got to watch out for these covenants. But if there's something that's abnormal, hey, now we're talking about it. Or you might be talking to a client on a vacant land deal and they say, well, I want to put a mini home there, or I want to put a tiny home there, or I want to put a modular home there. Can I do it? Well, if there's covenants on the property, then, we want to make damn sure that it doesn't restrict that use, because if that's the case, then you're not interested. So that's also part of the review. So if you have certain things that especially on vacant land, I like to get those questions too. Like, hey, Mark, just FYI, here are some of the concerns the client has. Here are some of the concerns we have, because then it gives me a frame of reference too, because I'm looking for these things. But if I know that there's a particular concern you have, then I'll address that specifically. Either, hey, no, you're good. All the things you want to do, you're fine. Or conversely, whoa, we've got a problem here, because
That actually all ties into, you kind of touched it there, was in talking, like, either the realtor or our shared client talking to you, is I was going to say, like, zoning. If you know what they're going to do. Like if they're just saying, I'm going to buy land, well, are you looking for different things than you are if they say, hey, look, I'm buying land, but I want to put a certain thing on this property. I want to be able to do small maintenance repair and have a garage, or I want to have a mill on it.
Yeah,
Like, is that something
absolutely.
that you look for in general, or is it like help to know what they're looking for the purchase when it comes to vacant land
Yeah,
for?
it very much helps to know. I mean, for most people, if they're just building a regular single family dwelling, it's not going to be an issue in the vast majority of cases. But apart from if it's multi-unit or if there's a business use or agritourism use or whatever it might be, yeah, definitely looking for that. And, I tell people all the times, and I'm sure you've had me tell you this more times than you can count, Jim, but whenever someone has a particular use, every municipality is different. And so it's always a good idea to reach out to that municipality and tell them, listen, I'm looking at this area, this property, and this use. Is it permitted? Because with land use, sometimes it's the way it works is on the face of it, it's either permitted as of right, meaning you can do it 100%, not permitted, i.e., you can't, or permitted with conditions, or permitted by development agreement or some other process with the municipalities. Like out here, for example, some of the higher density developments, they're not permitted as of right at all. The zoning will not allow them, except in the zoning it says, but these uses, 4 unit, 6 unit, whatever it might be, is permitted by development agreement. So then the person who's going to do that development has to reach out to the municipality, go through the process of getting that development agreement, and then they can do that use. So sometimes you need to do that ahead of time. Sometimes you already own the property and you're looking at developing in a certain way. But those types of zoning issues or land use issues are important. And like I said, for the most part, for typical single family dwelling, unless you're dealing with wetland,
Hmm.
you're probably fine. But when you deviate from that, then, that's the kind of thing I do want to know, because it's like, okay, well, then I'm either telling you to contact the municipality or we're doing a look to see either a quick answer, yes or no, or
Hmm.
maybe not, definitely go check the municipality. Because sometimes I get the question, and if I'm reviewing it and it's a clear cut answer, oh, I'll just tell you. But it's not always a clear cut answer.
Right.
So that's the tricky part there.
So, I mean, one of the common ones I hear about is like Jim mentioned sheds encroaching or garages, fencing, things like that. What's kind of the horror story? What's a horror story you've had to deal with that I know you
Yeah.
got something. I know you do.
Oh yeah, no, and this is also why you have title insurance, right? Because probably one of the worst situations I saw was property. I didn't represent these folks in their purchase, but they made a title insurance claim because an issue was raised, and it was actually the insurance company that hired me to try to fix it, which we
Mhm.
did. But what happened was they bought the house. Everything was fine. No cause for concern. No red flags from them, from the lawyer, from the realtor, nothing. Everything was fine. But then when the neighbor got a survey, because they wanted to build a fence, the survey showed the house these folks bought was 12 feet over the line. Not a shed, not a garage, the whole bloody house.
No.
So that was obviously not a good day for those folks, but they made the claim to the title insurer and the title insurer covered it and the issue was addressed. And to make a long story short, there was a negotiation that had to happen to get the land necessary to fix that problem. And that's what
Right.
happened.
Right.
That's the problem, is that there's a lot of deals where you're not going to know about an encroachment unless there's survey fabric there to tell you. And so these things, more often, those encroachment issues more often than not come up after the fact.
After.
And that's why it's important to have that coverage. But yeah,
Mhm.
that's the worst one I've seen, is the whole house was over. I've
Yeah.
seen lots of minor ones, like, you know, what I see a lot is people get permits for things and they don't finish them, whether it's a
Yes.
shed or a deck or
Yeah.
whatever. So got a permit, got, went through the proper channels. Great. Exactly what you need to do. And then they sell the property and they forget about that final inspection part to close the ticket. And then the municipal inspector's calling the new owner saying, hey, I need to come do the final inspection on that deck or that shed or whatever. And I'm like, what? Okay, come check it out. And if they check it out and it's fine and the ticket's closed, no problem. But if it doesn't meet code or what have you, and now repairs have to be made to close the ticket.
So that would be now on that new owner.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
But also something that's dealt with through the title insurance.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That was
so that's the good news. That's the good news there is there's a lot of benefit that it has for a lot of these scenarios. But the problem is we're not often seeing them at the beginning. It's oftentimes after the fact.
Right. Yeah. The worst I ever had in my 18 years in the industry was similar. A neighbor got a survey because they were planning to put a fence up, but it was a shed. It was just a shed, and they literally just had to move it over. So it wasn't a big deal, but definitely not a house. That would be a big one for sure.
You have new tenants. You have strangers who get to live in that 12 feet of your property.
Yeah, it was that was definitely a surprise, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah.
So walk me through it here, Mark. Is I get an offer made up, get it into a nice ball, ball it nice and tight, run it into Windsor, throw it at your guys' office, door opens, it lands on your admin's desk. What happens from there?
So what happens from there is we get the file open, we log the date, and I make sure that you hear from me well before that date regarding that lawyer review, because that is the first thing that we do is we do that review, make sure that everything is good, or if there's not, that we have an opportunity to talk about it. And that's also why I like having it early, because then, and I'll reach out and Jim, you and I have had these conversations, I'll reach out to you and say, because sometimes you have the answers. Like I've had that situation where, hey, Jim, I'm looking at this. And you say, oh, well, I remember one time it was, well, actually, there's an amendment coming for that. Great.
One time.
That's all I'm looking for. So, that stuff's fantastic. But on the title side, I think that in the covers, for the most part, what we're looking for. I mean, we're also looking at what the liens are, right? Because we want to make sure that we know what has to be paid out to make that happen for the buyer on the sales side, or on the buyer side. If I see like 4 or 5 mortgages, do you have enough money? Because you want to make sure that they can actually pay them out. But yeah, I mean that's what I'm looking at on the title side before I look over the agreement for the most part. And the biggie is rights of way, at least out this way. That's one of the things we see. But on the agreement itself, we're looking at the provisions. We're looking at what the conditions are. We're looking at what the dates are, obviously, because again, I want to be organized and I want to line things up. What special conditions there might be. Sometimes things have to be done. Like, again, in the city, you're not going to see, well, I say the city, but I know, I grew up on the Eastern Shore. I mean, I know HRM's a lot bigger than that, but, I've been seeing a lot of septics need to be done, right? Like I'm seeing that over and over and over again. So, so we're looking for these kind of things to see what those conditions are, what work needs to be done. Are these timelines realistic? Are they addressed by holdbacks? Like, what is it that we're trying to do? And does it make sense and does it line up? Because sometimes it can also affect the financing side. So I'll be talking to a broker saying, hey, like, is this going to work from your standpoint? And more often than not, on those cases, it does, but you get the idea. But one of the things that I will say that, we're looking at, although we're not often the best place to discuss it, is HST. This is an issue that I see over and over and over again that doesn't seem to be well understood. And I'm going to tell you right now, I know enough about tax to be dangerous, but not to give advice, right? And so, if it's a clear example that I've seen time and time again, I know what the answer is because I've seen it over and over again. I've probably already spoken with an accountant about it. But there are instances where I may tell a seller, you need to talk to your accountant about this because it's not clear to me whether or not it should or shouldn't apply. And, one of the ones that I see happen a lot is with vacant land is, okay, well, I can sell the first lot without HST, but then every lot after that, I have to charge HST. No. If you create only one lot and then you sell that one lot before you create the next one, yes. But if you create that subdivision all at the same time,
Right.
every lot's subject to HST. So it is nuance, but it matters, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I've seen that, oh, well, the first lot's free. Nope, not the way
Right.
you did it. If you did this, 2025, 2026, I subdivided one lot, sold it. And then 2027, I did it again. Yeah, your 2026 one's fine, 2027 one's not. But, oh, I created all my lots at the same time. HSTs on all of them, 100%. If it's a companies can't use that exemption. If it's vacant land sold by a company, it's HST all day, every day. Use residential is what we usually see. So we know that's exempt.
Yep.
But here's a horror story for you, Eric. What if there's a home-based business? And I'm not talking about a home office like you guys might
Yes.
have. I'm talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
someone who's seeing clients for service at their home. And in that case, HST partially applies
Right.
because
So that a common one I see with that is hair salons or
yeah, there you go.
mechanics or things like
Acres.
that. Daycares. That was the other one in my head. Thank you, Jim.
I see like massage parlors, chiropractic, like this
Yeah.
kind of stuff, right?
So that's more what you're talking about, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
And so, I've seen those situations where someone says, oh, here it is, it's HST exempt. And I'm like, whoa, no, I know. Sometimes you don't know, but I remember one particular case. It's like, no. I know they run business X
Right.
out of their home.
Yeah.
So, it's not exempt. And as a seller, and I sometimes I'll say this, I say this a bit tongue in cheek, but you know what I mean? When I'm doing a lawyer review, I have to look at it through a different lens if I'm on for a seller and
Right.
if I'm on for a buyer.
Right.
Because if I'm on for a buyer in that scenario and I see HST exempt, I don't have a problem with that. But if I'm on for a seller and I see HST exempt, I have a problem with that.
Right.
Who's
Yeah.
paying?
You know what I mean?
Whose
So
client is paying in the end?
I'm just saying, but no, I mean, it's important either way, but you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
just it's one of those situations where if I'm looking at it through that lens, I'm still concerned. How much of a concern
Yeah.
might depend on that lens. But also I had one years ago where, we were selling a church and the church was exempt, but the parking lot that was a separate lot was not. So we went to the accountant, we said, hey, what's the status? And that was the response. This is exempt, this isn't. So we allocated the purchase price between the two lots so that we knew what the HST applied to and what it didn't. And you could do the same thing in the example I gave you on a home-based business, but it is something I see that comes up and it can cost people a lot of money if you don't address it.
I want to shoot out a common saying that I hear to you and just see your reaction, and please explain your reaction to me, okay? It's completely legit. Heard it a million times before. I want to see. We will kill it on lawyer review.
Yes, we've heard this many of times.
I've heard that many times too. Yeah. See, the interesting thing about lawyer review, as I understand it, is it's not part of your 408 process. So you could have a firm deal and then it gets killed on lawyer review. So can you kill it on lawyer review? Absolutely you can. Have I done that? Absolutely I have. But it depends on why, right? Because
Yeah.
What if there is no why, Mark? What if
what
it's
if there
just
is no
we've
why?
changed our mind and the lawyer review is the day after the 408?
Yeah. So, I mean, the technical answer is doesn't matter because the problem is what you're going to hear, and this is the way it has to be in a lot of cases, is why? Solicitor-client privilege. I don't have to tell you why. I'm not going to tell you why.
Interesting.
And that's honest to goodness the way it has to be, because when we represent our clients, if there's confidential information that we have or we acquired during that retainer, that's only disclosed if the client allows us to disclose it. So I know that the concern is that there may be no reason at all, and I'm not going to say that that's true or not true because it's going to depend on the circumstances, but you're not likely going to get that disclosure because of our duty of confidentiality. But there are instances where I see a deal firm up and Well, so I'll give you that. That's, remember I told you about we want to make sure the spouse is on board.
Mm.
I had to kill one because of that, because the spouse said, no way, it's not happening. It's like, so we had no choice. We had no choice because we had a party that had to cooperate and would not cooperate. Separations are problematic
thing.
sometimes.
Yeah.
I've seen that in separations, but I've also seen that in estate cases and family bickerings.
Yeah, and in those cases, it depends on the nature of the estate and what the will says, right? Because there are cases where the executor has full authority and full discretion to sell it, and if they don't care about the bickering, they can go ahead and do it. But there are other instances where if if that property is a specific gift to a particular beneficiary, if they don't want to cooperate, then the executor doesn't necessarily have the ability to steamroll that. There are exceptions to that, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
on the face of it, that could create an issue because you have a party, ultimately the same idea. You have a situation where you need a party to comply and they won't. And so then we're in that, like, hey, there's no problem with the conditions, no problem with financing, no problem with inspection, no problem with any of these things. But we have an uncooperative party. And we know as legal advisors that it can't happen without it. So before you're in a situation where your deposit's at risk or you have a risk of being sued if you don't complete the deal, we got to pull the reins up on it. And it absolutely does happen. So there are absolutely instances where you're going to see the lawyer review come in and deep six a deal for very, very good reasons. Another example I'll give you is I got a deal a couple of years ago, I think it was, no conditions. No. The only condition was lawyer review. So on the face of it, it's already firm once that deposit's made. But, not necessarily an encroachment issue, but basically the property was, from what I could tell, from mapping, satellite, what have you, clearly, I mean, clearly wetland.
Right.
Most of the property was a river. And it's like, okay, so why are you buying this property? Well, I want to build a house on it. No
That could be
chance.
pretty difficult.
No chance in hell are you building a house on here? Why don't you have a chat with the municipality and try to figure out what the setbacks are going to be and all that, if you can put it where you think you can put it? And they did. And the answer was no, not a chance in hell. So that deal died because, yeah, there was no conditions, but we looked at that title, we looked at that topo, we looked at that mapping. I mean, and it's one of those things I say, well, listen, I'm relying on something that is unreliable. I know that. I appreciate that. But there's a huge concern here because unless this is way, way off, there's no way in hell you're building a house here. It's not
Yeah,
happening.
floating house, sure.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want to build a boathouse, yeah, you want to build that boathouse. But that wasn't the intention. That's not what he told me. That's not what he told me.
Yeah.
Floating house was not what he was thinking about.
Not what he's going with? Okay. Duck house?
So yeah, these are the things that, you will see that come up on lawyer review and why a deal sometimes will die on lawyer review unrelated to the other conditions.
On the Eric, what's that clause called? The lawyer one? What's that clause actually called?
The on the APS,
Yeah, on the APS itself.
Lawyer-
it's just lawyer review.
Yeah.
Clause 8.1.
Yeah, that's it. So it is a clause. It is, and I think a lot of people miss the fact that it is a clause on a contract. It might not be under buyer's conditions. It
That's
might
right.
not be under seller's conditions,
But it is a
but a
condition.
clause is a condition.
It is a
It
condition.
is.
And
It
I
is.
think that's what a lot of people miss is they're like, oh, I'll just put it on lawyer review, and it's like you said, it's essentially sold as soon as the deposit's there.
In
Not
my
if it's
humble
before
opinion,
that date. There's still a date.
and you may or may not like what I'm about to say. Maybe you love what I'm about to say.
Perfect. I love those.
It should be part of the 408.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't get it.
Personally, when I go in, if I have a listing and I have an offer come in and that lawyer review is after the 408 condition dates, I either counter it or I discuss to my clients what that actually means, and it becomes an immediate no way. So it's either a counter to change that date to the same as a 408 or the day before, with the timeline being midnight, so it's all
Yeah.
at the same time.
I personally always put my lawyer review the same as my buyer's conditions.
And most do. Most
Yeah.
realtors
Most
that I
Oh,
deal with do.
I've seen people try to sneak it the other
Right.
way
It's not
specifically to have that
always that way.
quick out after the 408
Or they're the same day, but then the 408 comes early.
first.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
I've had a close call actually like that one time, and I mean it ended up fine. But my clients were, they were ready to sign the 408, but the buyer waivers form, but I hadn't heard from the lawyer, and I reached out just briefly. I said to my clients, before I send this to the listing agent to remove, let's just double check. I haven't heard from your lawyer in about a week, so I just made that quick shout out, and everything was good. And I guess
But it
for
could have
them, it was
happened.
no word was good word. But
and
sometimes I like
that's an
to
old
hear.
school way to do it. That's old.
Yeah, very old school way. But and that's the thing I find, it's even just a quick email, and sometimes it's just an email from an assistant, and I'm perfectly happy with that too.
Yeah, the admin.
No, and that's a good segue into part of my process, Eric. So what I do is when I do that review, you'll get an email from me directly. And that way you know whether everything's good or if there's something we need to address by way of an amendment or what have you. And if there's something kind of really, that we need to talk about, I'll call you
Right.
because that way we can flesh it out before it goes to press, if you will. Because like the example I gave about Jim with the amendment, there are times when it's already been addressed or it's already being addressed, and that's great. But if I didn't reach out to you and ask that question, I wouldn't know. So it's like, hey, here's the review. This is a problem. And then the next response I get is, well, actually it's not a problem because we've addressed it. So I'd rather know it's being addressed so that when I respond, I don't look silly raising an issue that's not an issue. But the other thing I will say too, Eric, is that I'm not going to tell you that it happens every time, but I strive to always get that review back to the realtor before you are looking at signing that 408, because then you're not reaching out to me asking that question. You've already got that answer, because I know that's important for you guys. And I know that's important for the client, because if things are going smooth and things are going along, you want to keep that train going, want to keep the momentum going. Everybody wants to feel good about that process.
And that's
And
one
if
thing
you're about to
oh, sorry.
file a 408 or sign a 408 and you're having that discussion, geez, I really need to reach out to your lawyer because I haven't heard from them. Some people might say, oh yeah, no problem. Do that, Eric. And other people might say, uh-oh, hopefully everything's cool. Like if you didn't hear from them, is everything cool or is there a problem because you haven't heard from them? I don't want that.
No.
You don't want that.
No, and then that's something that I say to my clients is, I find 90% of my clients, I'm referring them a lawyer. Like a lot of my clients in the past don't come with a lawyer in pocket. So I always tell them, like, we're creating a partnership. We're all working together for one best interest, and that's your best interest as my buying client or selling client, vice versa. So yeah, it's very important that that line of communication is open, and I love that you say that, like, you're going to be the first one to reach out, good or bad, versus the no call, and we're just assume everything's good.
Yeah, because and I mean, I know that's some people operate that way. Maybe it's just because of my personality that would drive me insane.
Yeah, yeah.
I hate having loose ends, if you will. I like that closure. So it's one of those things where the way I like to practice sometimes I say is, if I personally would want to see it done a certain way, I better damn sure do it that way.
Yeah, same here.
Practice what you preach.
Exactly. Tim, do you have anything else, or I have a question?
All I want is to just any last things from Mark about like the actual lawyer review clause.
Well, I was gonna kind of ask Mark about that with lawyer review, because one thing we've touched on residential and we've touched on vacant land aspect, but the big one, and I always see this, and getting the contract to you early on this type of deal, which I'm referring to, is a condo deal.
Yep. Yep. Oh, yeah.
When you're
Great
doing
question.
a
Thank you.
lawyer review for a condo, it's going to be very different than when you are for vacant land or single family residential. Can you
Absolutely.
kind of talk a little bit more about that side of the thing on the lawyer review, what you're doing and where you're diving? Because I know you dive a lot deeper in those.
Yeah, no, and thanks for that because I wasn't even thinking about condos today, but it's a whole different.
I've dealt with too many.
Yeah, and so for condos, there's a lot more review. So, I want the declaration of bylaws. Not to get too deep in the weeds, but the condo declaration creates the condominium. The bylaws govern how the board operates and all these kind of things. And so those are available on property online. So I don't, so usually when I get a package from a realtor in a condo, I get the declaration, I get the bylaws, I get the minutes, I get the reserve fund study, I get the financials, all of that stuff. I need it.
Mhm.
And if I don't get the plans and the declaration, the bylaws, no big deal. I can get them online, no problem. But the other stuff I need, the minutes aren't available online. The financials aren't available online. The reserve fund study is not available online. So I need all that stuff because the way I like to describe buying a condo is it's not like a traditional real estate deal. You're not just buying a house. You're not just buying a piece of land.
No.
In this case, you're not just buying your unit. You're buying an interest in the corporation, in essence. So the in the financial health, for example, of that corporation is a live issue
Mhm.
that we're looking at because, yep, you got your unit, great. But if the finances of that condominium corporation are poor, then it's gonna end up costing you more money because condo fees are going up, or you're gonna get hit with a special assessment,
Which is
or both.
everyone's big scare.
And so this is the thing. So I'm reviewing all of those documents up front at lawyer review stage, so that if there's anything, I can raise it. And I know I've told Jim this story, but I remember looking at one condo years ago. I understand its financial health is good now, but at the time it was not. And so, I have a finance background, but again, I'm not an accountant. And I remember reviewing those financials and I thought, oh my God, this is awful. You're getting like, and so I reached out to my client and I said, listen, I'm not an accountant, but here's some of the things I'm seeing. I would encourage you to reach out to an accountant to review these because they may have some more insight. They may be able to answer your questions better. But here's some red flags I'm seeing. And I always laugh at this because the response, because he had already reviewed them. And his response was, actually, Mark, I am an accountant and I'm seeing the same thing as you are. And I was like, okay.
Perfect. We're on the same page.
So it was one of those things where it was a red flag because it's like, yeah, you can see the special assessments or the condo fee increases coming a mile away. And so that's something that, you want to raise. If the reserve fund study, are the contributions to the reserve fund in line with the study? That's important. You want to make sure that they're actually putting aside the money that's recommended to be put aside to address those concerns. But there's also sometimes things that come up in the minutes. And like I've seen a couple where there was a major lawsuit or there's a major capital project that's falling outside of the usual schedule that the reserve fund thought. Something broke down quicker. These are also clues that, we need to look into and give you a heads up about and the client a heads up about to say, hey, you know, and it's not necessarily saying, hey, these are problems,
Yes.
but they may warrant some further look into. Like maybe we need that. Maybe you need to go back to the listing agent and ask some questions. Maybe we need to get in touch with the condo board and get some more clarification, whatever it might be. But those are the things that come up on a condo that you're not going to see in a regular deal because, yeah, if that condo corp is healthy financially, great. That's
Mhm.
what we want to see. But if it's not, then you need to raise that because somebody and look, somebody might look at that and say, you know what? I love the location. I love love the building. I love everything about it. These are risks I'm prepared to accept. Fine. But that's okay if you're going in eyes wide open. It's
Yes.
not okay if you don't know what's lurking around the corner.
Yeah. No, I got about like that's the thing. Condos is just a totally different beast. I know it, and when you're buying or selling, there's so much more involved in it than buying residential, single family, or vacant land. So I thought that we should touch on
Agreed.
that as well today.
Yeah.
A
So
lot.
thanks
Yeah,
for
that's a good one.
that's a
I
really
didn't
good
even think
point.
of it, and it's a very like I deal with it so much, and my thing is I sit there and I read the minutes.
Yep.
I
Same.
make sure I do that with condos, because if I don't know what they're doing, how am I expecting my clients
Yeah.
to know? But yeah, the lawyer gets
Yeah.
these things too.
Honestly, there's times I don't really understand what they're talking about, but that I have had those documents in front of me, and sometimes I do call the lawyer and say, "Can you just like kind of explain this to me, what they're saying here?" And then I'm fine. So then I could go back to my client, because sometimes our clients, as we know, don't necessarily go through things with a fine-tooth comb as much as we do, or a lawyer review does. So
They might rely on us a little bit, eh?
well, exactly,
Yeah,
and
to
that's
do
what
our
I think
job.
I'm going at. I was trying to get to is they are relying on us, and again, I always like we're not the experts. That's why we have lawyers. So that's you guys are the ones that are experts with that. But we still need to have a basic understanding, and so that's why like when I have had issue or questions on something, I do call the lawyer or someone I know that knows more about condo corporations than I do, because it's not my main market. I do deal quite a few condos in the years, but it's not my main focus. So I know there's other people in our industry that's their focus. And those are great people that I get to call too.
I've had so many condos. It's like that's why I learned to read all the documents. It's
Same. I've done them from Fredericton to here, but it's still, I think I've done more single family than I've done condo, right? So it's something I've always not want knowledge of, and it's something I'm always trying to get more knowledge on. And when I do get a condo deal, I'm like, sweet, I'm going to learn something new today, probably.
And then you're not going to see them. You're not going to see them in Metro proper, but you're going to see them on the Eastern Shore. You're going to see them up this
Yeah.
way. Is also the Bearland condos.
Yeah,
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
between the Bearland condos and also the like, what's the difference between doing a regular single family, semi-detached, detached, and mini home park?
Yeah. So
Mhm.
mini home park's a different beast too, because
Yeah.
it's really from that standpoint, and again, depends on buyer and seller, but you know, it depends on what's the lot rent, what are and
Mhm.
some. And not just that, but there's some mini home parks that have very rigid restrictions, covenants, or
Yes.
requirements, like how big your deck can be, whether or not
And
you have a
location.
shed, or how big your shed can be. A lot, and of course, if you're buying, if it's resale and it's already existing infrastructure, and you know that it's already been on side with the park, that's
And most parks have to sign off on a seller before they sell anyway.
exactly
So
right. But if you're looking at buying something and then you want to build those things, then you need to become familiar with those rules so that you don't go in, start doing something, then you have park management come in and say, "Oh, no way."
When it is the parks, on lawyer review, do you actually look at the list of things that need to be done before the person's allowed to purchase, or like have to be done as soon as they move in?
The Not on the purchase side, not really. More on the seller side to make sure that they've
Uh-huh.
got that blessing, that inspection and blessing from the park.
from the park owners.
Yeah, because I've actually had one where the sellers didn't do what was all the list that was supposed to be done, and it fell on my buyers when they came in, and they're like,
Mhm.
"But that was their responsibility," kinda thing.
Yeah.
But
So it
did
was
the buyer sign the lot lease with the park ahead of time?
I think so.
Then what the hell, park? I
Look,
mean,
all I know
I know that doesn't necessarily change things,
yeah,
but
all I know is my people walked in and they're like, "No, this skirting was supposed to be done," and they're like, "That's not a me problem," and they're like, "It is
Yeah.
it
now."
is now. Yeah, because most of the time when I'm dealing with that, it's the park won't sign off until
Yeah,
they
I
they've
think a
given
park
their
manager
blessing.
went on vacation and signed off before with the promise it would be done.
Yeah, one of those.
Well, that might be a conversation that has to be had with the seller's side.
Yeah,
Mm.
definitely.
It was also back, when yeah, I believe it was before the Wonderland sign had to come down in Lake Echo,
Oh,
before they had to take down the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
they had to take that down?
Yeah, of course they did. Yeah, I finally got seen and they got told they had to take it down or else. Yeah. Yeah, they got
While
that.
It's been a while since I've been up there, that's the thing.
Well, that man, that was my first time round. That was that was back in, the early 2000s, I believe.
End of an era. I didn't even know. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
I think that covers it from my standpoint, unless there were any burning questions you had. I mean, that's not gonna tell you every single thing I do every time, but it gives you enough of a
An overview.
cross-section of stuff that we look at and what we see and some of the conversations we need to have in that review process. So it's, I guess one thing I will leave you with is that it's more important than some people think. And I think that's the point of, when I was speaking with Jim about this is, really just making that clear too, is that, oh, it's just lawyer review. Like you say, just a rubber stamp.
Yeah.
No, it's not. If we're doing our job the way we're supposed to be doing our job, it's anything but. And yeah, I appreciate there's a lot of deals where everything's fine. And I'd say the majority are.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
For the most part, all the it's very rare I've personally had anything come across my desk from a lawyer for lawyer review, and if they're minor, and also sometimes, like you said earlier, it's already been discussed between the buyer sellers and stuff, and it's already been resolved before you even noticed it. So
and that's great. Like, and we love it when that happens, but we still gotta, we still gotta look. And but that's also, like I said, that's why whether it's you or Jim or anybody else, reach out and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, because if it's already been addressed or being addressed, awesome. But if it hasn't been, now,
I like that was excellent. Like you said, it's an overview. We definitely don't want to get too detailed into something like this, but if anybody ever has any questions, feel free to reach out to myself, Jim, or Mark. We'll put Mark's contact information up in the write-ups, and you can find him online. Any last words for us, Mark? Anything else that we should really, that our listeners and viewers should be aware of, that other than the importance of making sure they have lawyer review and contracts in your hand in time?
yeah, I think that's it. And,
That's it.
it's really just making sure that, all right, maybe what I'll put is kind of what I touched on before. It's, I want to make sure, same as you, that anybody who's buying or selling is going into a situation eyes wide open.
Right.
Because if you have the information, you can make decisions. You can make proper decisions, reasoned decisions. If you don't have the information, it makes that really hard. So, really cliche to say, knowledge is power. We could, take a trip back to nostalgia and say knowing is half the battle. But, it's one of those things where it really is important. And the more information you have, the better. And often you're more comfortable the more you know. And so that's what I want to try to help realtors and clients with, is just to make sure that you have that knowledge base and you have that comfort, because then you're going to feel a lot better about your deal.
And again, thank you very much. This is what we want this podcast to be about too, is education and helping people understand. There's so much involved with real estate, and as we've shown here today, buying vacant land to a single family to a condo to a mini home, there's different things. It's never two deals are ever the same, right? So it's very important that we reach out and we create these partnerships and help educate our clients, mutual clients especially.
And the lawyer's more than just that red stamp of approval, pass it on.
So more than just a pretty face, right, Jim?
Yeah, because I
I
mean,
wouldn't
really,
say that.
from here, lawyer review's done now. Like the rest of us, we're waiting for closing date, and then all of a sudden, Mr. Lawyer reappears. So we'll save that conversation for another day. Closing day in the life of a lawyer, because those ones are interesting. So we'll
Yeah,
we'll
There you go. There's
definitely
a good
save
old
that for another
segue. We
day.
just have Life of a Lawyer, like this nice little thing we do every now and then. It's like, welcome to episode 2 of Life of a Lawyer.
you don't want to dive into this head, boys.
Well, we will. We definitely will. So again, Mark, thank you very much. So we'll close this out for today, and hope you enjoy the rest of our show. Thanks again.
All right. Listen, gentlemen, I really appreciate you getting me on, and always good to see both of you.
All right. Welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed all that and got a little bit
And
of
more.
education. As we said, we did cover a lot, but we didn't dive too deep into each because we would have been here forever. But what was your kind of big take of that?
I love talking to Mark.
Yeah,
Like I
same.
said, like not only is he like one of my longest friends, so talking to him it never gets old. Obviously, I've been doing it since I was 9 years old. But it's just when it comes to his wealth of knowledge, it's why he was on when we started with the over a pint. It's
Right.
why he was one of the first. It's why he's been on like in multiple ways in front of the screen with us.
Hmm.
Is he is a vast wealth of knowledge, but it's also stuff that like seems so simple to us
Hmm.
to have somebody from the outside turn it around and be like, yeah, it's simple for you. but this is what we're doing. This is what it entails. This is what people are thinking.
That's
Like,
right.
and it's again, it's always an eye opener. That's one thing I like about the job is, like you were saying, like no two deals are the same, and you get used to that. You get so used to that that you expect it to be different, but you don't look at it from the outside and see
Yeah.
it's not just different. It's stressful, or there's a lot more wheels going on than we know.
Right. Yeah, that's the one thing I've always enjoyed about this job is, like you said, there's no 2 days alike. There's never 2 deals alike. Even you could have 2 brand new constructions, identical builds, but they're not going to go the same way.
No.
And like we said, lawyer review is only one step for somebody like Mark, other lawyers, and then we definitely will go down, a closing day aspect with the lawyers as well at some point. But yeah, I thought this was really good. It was really it was interesting to hear, like we know as realtors what they do, but the general public don't know always. And just making sure, like the big one for me too was, making sure information is given to the lawyer in time, in lots of
Yeah,
time,
well, they
right?
can't give you the right they can't help you if you don't get that deal in front of them.
Right.
They can't help you if you don't tell them your plan going forward.
Right.
Everything I feel like we compress everything so much to
Yeah.
make it simple for other people that sometimes that wide scope is missed.
Very much, yeah. Yeah, and you can tell he definitely cares about his clients just as much as we do. So, he's definitely online that way. And even all the lawyers I deal with are like that now. I am selective of who I do work with and recommend. So it's always good to have those connections. Like you said, you can pick up the phone and ask him anything, anytime, any day, real estate related or not. He's a wealth of information for sure, and you could definitely see that in that interview there today.
Yeah, well, that's I think one of the main reasons that guy's always been like an ear that I've gone to. Like he listens really well, and man, does he knows what to turn out and say to get
Right.
things done.
Yeah. Well, that was great. Again, so I will put Mark's, some of his contact information in our write-ups here below. But if you have any questions or you need anything from us, please feel free to reach out. You can reach us at info@movewiththeteam.ca. It's probably the easiest. You get both of us. But if you're looking online, you can search the real estate team. We're all across all social platforms pretty much. Myself, I'm Eric Holman. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky. I do a little bit on Blue Sky. Or Twitter. No, I haven't really touched that in a long time. Jim, where can we find you? If
Google me,
anywhere. Googly.
Metacrawler me. I don't know what other form. Yahoo me. Just look me up. I'm there.
All right, and also we do put this full audio version out on all major podcast platforms, and we have our full video on our YouTube channels. So check those out. Give us a like, subscribe, and share, please. And thank you again for joining us on the Community Game Plan. I'm
Yeah,
Eric
appreciate
Holman,
it. Thank you.
and we're on our way out.
Jim Smartin. See you later.
Thanks again. Have a good one. Just gonna stop there.